What it do? Yo man, listen. New Machine of War, PogChamp, New Machine of War, PogChamp. Let's get right into it. The next Machine of War has been revealed in the patch notes. It is the Broadside for the Tau faction. Now, this patch is a little different. Those of you who have watched Nandi's Biophagus video will have noticed that we are able to post these slightly earlier. And personally, because Nandi had posted the Biophagus, I want to do the Broadside, so I don't just like repeat it. I will make a video, however, the first one I want to make is the Broadside. Personally, I do like Tau very much. They are actually my most played faction on tabletop. That is actually crazy. However, you're not here for my tabletop shenanigans. You're here for the Broadside Machine of War. So let's get right into it. As you can see, it has two abilities, same as anything in the game. It has a primary ability that costs munitions, and a secondary ability that does not cost munitions. If you look at the faction, he is a member of the Tau faction. This could have mattered, it doesn't. And for his traits, he just has the Machine of War trait. Similar to other ones, he doesn't have anything special. I will actually start with the secondary ability. I do like doing that because of the fact that they don't cost anything and most people will just use that. So, it's called the Smart Missile System. It is a ranged attack. The stats you see on your screen are at max level. I will read the ability and then explain it. Targets an enemy unit on the battlefield, then deals 3 times blast damage to each enemy unit that has a marker light. The target unit then receives a marker light for 2 rounds. Unfortunately, it has the dreaded this ability's damage ignores all the attacker bonuses and modifiers, including elevation, and cannot crit. Now, the wording might seem a little weird. However, this is intentional. So the way this works is you target a enemy unit, and then the Broadside attacks all the units on the map that have marker lights, and then the unit who you initially targeted, they get a marker light. This is done to make it so you can't just like instantly like select it, do damage. This is a balancing factor because the unit receives marker light for 2 rounds. If you could just do it directly, this will just be a little bit too strong when it comes to ad clear. However, characters such as Shosil and the Dark Strider and Shosil drones, they can apply marker lights. So in modes where your opponents, like in TA for example, where your opponent's really just trying to like spam the board with summons, you can deal with them pretty well. So this is nice. I do like this. Unfortunately, it cannot be buffed. I dislike that, but I do understand it. It kind of makes sense. For this primary ability, this is called the Railgun, Heavy Rail Rifle. It's the Railgun, guys, come on. It's a primary ability, it's a ranged attack. The initial cost to use the ability is 1 round, so you can't use it on the first round. And its munition cost is 1 munition. This is pretty neat because of the fact that with the recent changes we are able to get munitions, 1 munition per daily mission complete. So it's nice to have an ability that doesn't cost multiple munitions like Galatian. Now, this has multiple points. I'll read everything and I'll break it down. Targets an enemy unit or machine of war and fires a heavy rail rifle at the start of the Broadside's next turn. I'm not going to say that name. It's impossible to pronounce. I'm sorry. Against units, deals 2 times 5,000 to 6,000 piercing damage. The damage is reduced by 30% for each hex the target has traversed during its last turn to a minimum of 0 damage. Any damage dealt to vehicles and big targets is increased by 75% each. Against machines of war, increases the cooldown of target's secondary ability by 1 round, and has a 75% chance to also increase the cooldown of the primary ability by 1 round. Again, this ability also has the dreaded disability damage, ignores all attacker bonuses and modifiers, including elevation, and cannot crit. That was a word salad. So I'll try to balance it out. I'll try to explain it as well as I can. It has two parts. Firstly, the machine of war can actually target enemy machines of war. It can also target units. Now, if you target an enemy machine of war, what it does is it will increase the cooldown of the target's secondary ability for 1 round. So, for example, let's say I am playing the Broadside and you are playing the Biowar. Biowar has the ability, the secondary ability Spore Mine Launcher, that doesn't have a cooldown. If I'm going before you, I shoot your Biowar. Now, when it's your turn and you try to use the Biowar's secondary ability, you will see it's like, hey, you can't use it. There's a 1 round cooldown on it. And you can just keep doing this, which will be really funny. However, as mentioned before, the railgun shot fires at the start of the Broadside's next turn, so you can't completely stun lock enemies. However, against abilities that do take a little bit of time, like maybe 1 round, you can do some funky business where you can disrupt your enemy. It has a second part, where the railgun shot has a 75% chance to also increase the cooldown of the primary ability by 1 round. So it's the same concept as the secondary ability cooldown increase. However, it's not guaranteed. It's 75% chance. So most of the time it will happen, and sometimes it won't. When it won't, it'll feel bad, but it's not the end of the world. When you target an enemy unit, you will deal a lot of pierce damage, realistically. Like, you'll do around like 10,000 pierce damage, which is pretty cool. However, if the enemy has moved multiple hexes, your damage will get reduced by a lot. So if they move 2 hexes, it's going to be 60%. If they move 3 hexes, that's 90%. That's not a lot of damage. And if it's something like Athena, your damage is going to go to 0 because they will have moved too much. However, if you're dealing damage to vehicles and big targets, the damage is increased by 75% each. Just saying, if something is big target and vehicle, you're dunking on that thing. So, personally, I haven't had like too much time to play with this character, or Machine of War. However, I did fire the railgun a few times, and let me tell you, it is incredibly satisfying to hit something with a railgun, and for that thing to take 10,000 damage. Now, is it good? It's very questionable. However, it does make the neurons pop, like just like, oh, big number go brr. So I do like it in that sense. Now, my verdict is that this is very similar to Lucian in the sense that he's a fun character to play. He's quite enjoyable. I think Snowprint did nail the fun factor. That being said, I do think he's a little underwhelming, but he doesn't have to be. My criticism of the Machine of War comes from the fact that both of his abilities cannot be modified. And I do feel like that is a missed opportunity because he is a Tau unit after all, and he does apply marker lights. However, despite being Tau and despite applying marker lights himself, he can't benefit from the marker lights he applies, which is kinda unfortunate. However, if you are playing a Tau team and you can apply marker lights yourself, the secondary ability is going to be online right away. You'll do a little bit of damage, and it'll be cool. Now, if you've been paying attention, like if you're more well-versed with the game, you will have noticed that the secondary ability of the Broadside is quite similar to the secondary ability of the Forge Fiend. What do I mean by that? Both of them are abilities that don't cost any munitions. Both abilities do 3 hits worth of damage. Both abilities require the target to be afflicted by a certain debuff. In the case of the Forge Fiend, the target has to be standing on hexes covered with fire. And in the case of the Broadside, the target has to have a marker light. When the conditions are met, they take 3 hits worth of damage, so they are quite similar in that sense. However, the secondary ability of the broadside, because it cannot be modified by damage boosters you have, it does lack in damage. Even if it didn't get even if the Forge Fiend didn't get modified, the Forge Fiend's base damage stat for his secondary ability at level 50 is higher than the base damage stat of the broadside at level 50. Additionally, the Forge Fiend has higher pierce ratio. I think it has like 3 times the pierce ratio, and it can crit. It has like a whole mechanic about critting. So if you're thinking, it's like, oh my god, you know, I use Forge Fiend as a free damage source. It adds like a little bit of damage every single guild raid or whatever, and I'm gonna do the same with the broadside. It really isn't gonna do that much. Now, does the broadside have any uses? I do think so, and surprisingly enough, it can have uses in it can have uses in the sense that you don't have to invest too much in him. What do I mean by this? And there's like 1 or 2 edge cases, like say you're playing Revas and you're not playing any other source that can apply Marker Lights to the boss. You can make it so the broadside applies Marker Lights and then Revas does 15% more damage. It's pretty cute. I like it. I think the broadside is a fun machine of war. I think it's enjoyable. However, I don't really think it will be meta outside of Tournament Arena. In Tournament Arena, where you can bring, Guild Wars, anywhere where your opponent can bring machines of war, it will be useful, especially against those machines of war whose secondary ability takes 1 turn to get off cooldown. I do think that's where the broadside will truly shine. Anyways, that's my broadside video. Thank you very much for watching the video. I genuinely appreciate it. My referral code is in the middle of the screen. If you want to enter it, you do get 100 Blackstone shards. It's a great way to support the channel, and I truly appreciate you watching my videos. So, have a good day, and stay safe.